Hi there, it's Florence here and I'm back again with another episode of my knitting video podcast. You might notice that I am in a slightly different setting today. It really bothers me that this wardrobe door won't close all the way. I don't know why, I'll fix it for the next episode because it frustrates me for some reason. I know I said in the last episode that I would be uploading again in like 2 weeks. That was a lie from me. The reason being I've moved. I'm in a brand new flat. It's been super stressful and I also still haven't unpacked all of my stuff, which means some of the projects that I'm currently working on will not be featured in this video because they're still boxed up somewhere. With that being said, there is no shortage of new stuff for me to talk about, so I guess I'll just jump into it. As usual, I will talk about what I'm wearing, any projects that I've finished recently, whatever stuff I currently have on my needles, not in a box, and any new yarn or knitting related items that I've picked up lately. I have a lot, so I will just jump into it. Starting with what I'm wearing, this shirt I spoke about in the last episode as one of my finished objects. This is I think it's called the lined loop top by Other Loops. Other Loops is a Danish designer whose patterns I really enjoy, and this was intended to be a very easy quick knit that I could carry around with me when I was travelling, because a little camisole like this on 3mm needles is something I can easily shove into my bag. I've knitted a lot of tops similar to this before, so I was expecting it to turn out well. I'm still really happy with the result. See if I can show you a tiny bit more of it for a second. And this is knitted in the Knitting for Olive merino, which is my favourite yarn for summer tops. I talk about it all the time. You will hear more about it in this video as well. And the colours are navy and I think marzipan. If you want to hear more about this top, you can check out the previous episode. But with that, I'm going to jump into talking about some new stuff. I have two finished objects. Neither of them had even been cast on in the last episode. One of them is technically a garment, but I think the other one is more exciting this time around. So I guess I should just jump right in and talk about the most exciting thing. That's what I normally do. I have mittens. I don't know why I felt like mittens was a thing to knit, like, you know, end of August. I mean, I guess we're kind of heading into cold weather, even though we won't have any weather remotely cold enough to knit mittens for quite a few months. But I'm just feeling very enthusiastic about gift knits lately. And the thing is, I'm quite nervous about knitting gifts for people. I'm always worried they're not going to fit properly, they're not going to turn out exactly how they'd like. And so whenever I knit gift knits, I tend to knit one for myself first to like check everything is okay. And so I made myself a pair of mittens to sort of get my mitten knitting skills tuned in, ready for gift knitting season. My sister has asked for mittens for Christmas, so I have at least one pair that I know that I have to do. But yes, I will show you the pair that I made myself last year. These were the mittens that I made myself last winter. To be honest, I made them a little bit later in the winter, so I didn't have much opportunity to wear them. I went to Stockholm and also Warsaw around springtime, like late winter, early spring. And in both cases it was cold enough for me to wear these and I didn't take them with me. So, you know, hopefully I'll get more mitten wearing opportunities this winter. The pattern I followed for these ones was called Vikfarvet and it was by Skeindir, who has a lot of sort of Norwegian Selbu mitten style designs. This one I thought was a really unique design because it's a lot more organic and swirly than other Selbu mittens that I've seen. I think it's super pretty. It also has a kind of distinctive repeating pattern on the inside of the hand that even carries on the other side of the thumb as well, which I think is pretty cool. I've definitely talked about these before on my channel. They were a giant pain to make. I have really huge hands, at least for me being a, 163 centimeter tall woman. So I often have to modify the gauge quite significantly when I'm knitting mittens because they don't tend to come in multiple sizes if they're charted very elaborately like this. This pair I think is supposed to be a pair of fingering weight mittens and I ended up knitting it with BC Garn Loch Lomond, which is a DK weight or even worsted weight maybe yarn, and I knitted it on 3mm needles. I think if I wanted to make another pair of fingering weight mittens I might use the same yarn combination or something similar. But the thing is, that meant that these were very tight and uncomfortable to knit. So this time I knitted my mittens at a slightly less insane gauge. I guess I'll mention the pattern first. The pattern that I used is called Alma. It's by Maya Åkerström. I think that's how you pronounce it. I will link all of the patterns that I mention in this video in the description as always, because I know that I have a tendency to butcher people's names and or talk very fast and not pronounce things very clearly. I thought it was a really beautiful pattern, like quite bold, but also elaborate enough that it feels fancy and special. I think it's supposed to be like a worsted weight on 3mm needles. I used gynt from Sandnes garn on 3.5mm needles and it worked out great. I wouldn't want them any smaller, but they do fit me fine. Let me see. Yes, this is the yarn that I used. Do you want to focus? This is the pale grey that I used. This is the petite knit gynt. I will put the colour numbers in the description, given they don't have names written on the packaging anyway. But this is a pale grey, and then I also used a really dark blue colour as the main colour. When I knitted these, I did put a post on my Instagram story after I knitted the first mitten to say, should I switch the main and contrast colours for the second mitten? And I thought this would be so cute, and then in the poll you guys told me that it would not be cute at all, and so I gave in to peer pressure and I knitted both mittens the same. Somebody did suggest that perhaps I should knit the same pair of mittens again with the colours switched, so that I could choose to have them matching or non-matching, or like I guess I could have friendship mittens with a friend if we like switched one mitten. If you want to have friendship mittens with me, let me know. I might actually do that just because of the yarn quantities that I used. Putting the colours this way around uses slightly more of the darker colour, so what ended up happening was I ended up using maybe 2 or 3 meters of my second ball of the dark blue grey, and I still had, I don't have it with me, but like a small amount of the pale grey left. If you switched halfway through, 1 ball of each would be fine, and for reference, gynt is I think 90 meters. I mean, I have a ball here I can check. 91 meters per 50 grams. So if you have 91 meters of each of your colours, you could probably make a pair if you switch the main and contrast. I think if you had 100 meters of each yarn, that should be sufficient. I still think that switching the colours on one of these would be cute. So maybe I will make that second pair, find a friend who also likes asymmetric mittens, and we can have matching asymmetric mittens. The design I'll show you in a little bit more detail. I think this is totally beautiful, right? I turn it around, you can see the inside of the hand. It's very classic. I will say the corrugated rib here is in the original pattern. Try and move my hair so it doesn't touch my microphone. These Latvian braids are not in the original pattern. These are something that I just added myself. I just think Latvian braids look really pretty and I want to put them on everything. The problem is I always worry that like I'm making some kind of traditional style mitten and then modifying it in a way that's not traditional and bad. But I think that they look really pretty at least. I will say I really like the thumb gusset on these. It's different to this pair. I'll try and show you. So for this pair, this is the sort of thumb gusset that I'm familiar with, right? You increase from a couple of stitches here out until it's the width of the thumb, and then on the next round you put the thumb stitches on the front of the thumb here on hold and cast on like you would if you're separating body and sleeves on like a raglan jumper or something. And then you end up with the same number of stitches on the inside here that you're casting on as you've put on hold. Whereas with this pair, I don't know if you can see the thumb gusset, I've sort of blocked it so that it continues around the side here. But you start off and you increase in the same way, but you increase until you have more stitches. And then the number of stitches that you pick up is a smaller number than the number that you put on hold, if that makes any sense. And so on the front of the thumb here, we only have the stitches that were put on hold from where I knitted the thumb gusset. But on the inside, I have some that I picked up and some that I had left on hold. And I think that just allows the thumb gusset to be a bit bigger and also moves the thumb a little bit out to the side so it sticks out a tiny bit. Whereas these, if you like look at the mitten from the front, you can't see the thumb gusset at all. What that means, I will try and put one on so that I can show you. This pair looks really nice if I hold my thumb here. So my thumb is sort of positioned where the thumb sits naturally on the mitten. But if I open my hand at all, like I often do, you can maybe see like this design is really warped, the stitches are stretched out a lot. It doesn't feel as comfortable, and especially right here, like it doesn't look that nice. Whereas on this pair, I have to like shove my hand in there, but once it's on, it fits really well. The thumb already naturally sits in this position where it's not like lined up awkwardly with my hand like this, and so with my hand in a natural resting position, the mitten isn't stretched out at all, and it's a lot more comfortable and also looks really pretty. This design isn't distorted at all around here. I just feel like this shape fits the actual shape of my hand so much better. That's what it looks like on. They're really, really cute. Something about this colour scheme also makes me think of ceramic in a way that I really like. Just generally, these are a great success, and if I were to knit another pair of colourwork mittens, which I will, I have yarn to knit quite a few more pairs that I'll show you later, I would very happily knit this pattern again. I would very happily knit this sort of thumb gusset again. I mean, I will, even if I end up knitting another pattern that doesn't include this sort of thumb gusset, I think I'll modify it to have the thumb sit like this because I like it so much better. I would definitely knit another pattern by Maya Åkerström. The pattern was really easy to follow. I mean, I just followed the charts, but the charts had no mistakes in, they were clear. I guess that's really what I look for. Just generally, if you follow me on Instagram, you've been seeing far too much of these mittens. If you're my friend in real life, you've been seeing far too much of these mittens. I just haven't been able to shut up about them. I love them so much. I really like colourwork. I should knit more colourwork because I love doing it. And I'm getting a little better at it. Like, my continental knitting is a little better now than it used to be, and so I can knit two-handed colourwork very comfortably. I always struggled with small circumferences like this. Like, I was better at knitting colourwork jumpers than socks or mittens, but this is actually working out okay now, and I really enjoyed the process. I hope you can't hear too much noise outside. I don't want to dox myself. I live right in the middle of Oxford now, and so I'm just not going to get total quiet. Like, it's not possible. Anyway, I'll show you my second finished object, which is also part of like a genre of knitted pieces that I really want to delve more into. I knitted a bra. It was kind of a spontaneous thing. I just found a bralette that I haven't worn in a while, the Cloud bralette by Knitwear. I don't have it to hand right now, that is probably packed. I remembered how cute it was and how much I wore it before the weather got hot, and I was like, I want to knit some more bras and bralettes for this winter. I find that these are like a great thing to wear underneath a jumper. I know that people are often quite weirded out by the idea of knitting a bra because it's not sort of something you'd expect to see knitted, but I actually think that knitting lends itself quite well to bras, at least for me and what I like to use a bra for. It's comfy, it's supportive enough for me to get on with my life. The fabric is relatively light, and how do I put this? My anatomy lends itself well to not having to be too picky about bras. Like, most things work okay for me, this included. Anyway, this thing I knitted freehand. I didn't use a pattern. I'll talk very briefly about how I did it. So this is knitted in Lang Cashmere Premium, which is a virtually identical yarn in my experience to Cardiff Cashmere Classic, which I've used a lot. So I knew what my gauge was. This is on 3mm needles. I'd say the yarn is a sport or like a light DK, perhaps. I knew what my gauge was. I took my underbust measurement, applied the negative ease that I wanted so I could calculate the number of stitches I needed for that like band. And then I knitted a little, did a purl round, knitted a little more, and then I knitted my live stitches together with the cast on edge. So that traps the elastic. There's a wide elastic in here between two layers of knitting so that you can't see it. I then took my widest bust measurement. Is it called full bust? I don't really know about these things. And I calculated the difference so that I could figure out how many increases I wanted and how I needed to space them out in order to have the increases the correct length. These increases here, right? So then I positioned them in two spots on the front of the bra, and they are just increasing on either side of one stitch, kind of like you would for like a one-stitch raglan jumper, here and here only. There are no increases anywhere else on the bra. And then once I finished the increases, I bound off a bunch of stitches. I left a few here and also obviously along the cups on the front here. And then with each of those, I decreased on either side as I knitted so that they ended up a triangular shape. And then once I had, I want to say 6 stitches left, I did a 6-stitch I-cord, and then I also did a 6-stitch I-cord on the other side and seamed them. there you go, I've just talked you through the entire process. I hope that makes some sense. I know that me talking about these things is probably not super helpful if you haven't knitted something similar to this before, because it's quite confusing. But I guess if you are somebody who knits bras and you had any questions about how I did that, then what I said maybe makes sense and answers some of those questions. This is a very simple bra pattern, like there's nothing elaborate going on here. I haven't done any smart short rows or anything like that. It's really just triangles and elastic. I really would like to knit some more challenging bras. In particular, there is a knitter on Instagram. I don't know, I guess she's called Steffi Studio. I want to say like St. Effie Studio because there's a dot after the T. I will link her Instagram or maybe Ravelry, whatever I can find, in the description. She has 2 bra patterns that are currently being test knitted, and she's been teasing these 2 bra patterns for 2 years, I think more than 2 years, and since she first posted them, I've been really wanting to knit them, and I'm still waiting. I sent her a DM on Instagram. I was like, hi, is your pattern going to be released this year? Like, do I need to knit something similar from my brain, or can I wait for this pattern to come out? And she never accepted my message request, so it remains a mystery. Anyway, they're beautiful and I really, really want to knit them, so I'm crossing my fingers that they come out around this autumn at some point so that I can knit them. Just generally, I think there are a lot of different styles of knitted bra that are really cute. I'd like to experiment more with freehanding some. I'm not going to release a pattern anytime soon. I think I have had a few questions from people about whether I would release a pattern for this. I feel like the fit of a bra is very particular and hard to get right. It's very specific to an individual person, and also, as I mentioned, like, I'm not somebody who requires anything very specific from a bra. Like, my body type is very easy to knit a bra for. This is such a weird thing to be talking about on camera, honestly. And so I don't feel very confident grading a bra pattern to somebody who has a very different body type from me. In particular, like, there's a lot more, compared to an oversized jumper, there's a lot more that's variable with a bra pattern. Like, you need to be able to vary cup size and also band size pretty much separately. And I think that I'd have a really hard time getting my head around that. So I just don't feel confident grading anything. There are a lot of very similar patterns to this by the designer nakedknit. So if you like this, check out nakedknit. I have knitted one of their bralettes before, I think, and generally quite liked the patterns. They're a little bit sort of made to measure in a sense. I think you use some of your own measurements when you're knitting them. And as I said, I also really recommend the Cloud bralette by Ulla Knitwear. I've got cashmere on my nose this episode. I was really happy with the result from that one. Okay, I think that's all I have to say about the bra, and those are my finished objects, but I have a lot of stuff in progress. So I suppose this is the biggest one. I've been saying I'm going to make this for a really long time. I released a pattern a year and a half ago, maybe? It's very hard to remember. Called the Tombo tee, which is a plain striped t-shirt pattern. It has a, I guess you'd call it a contiguous shoulder construction. And I put a lot of thought into how to knit this striped t-shirt so that the stripes don't have like a visible beginning of round anywhere, and I was really happy with that pattern and it's done quite well. I've been wanting to use that same construction to make a jumper, which I will call the Tombo sweater, for a long time, and I was just waiting for yarn that I found really inspiring, I guess. I think I've bought some yarn before and sort of vaguely planned to use it for this and it never happened, but now it has actually happened. I showed this yarn in the last episode. This was some of the yarn that I picked up when I was in Helsinki a few weeks ago from Snurra, which is a lovely yarn shop in Helsinki, which I strongly recommend if you ever go there on holiday. I spent a lot of money in that shop. Some of it was spent on this. This is tukuwool, which I'm pretty sure is widely available outside Finland as well. Like, I definitely know there's at least one shop in the UK that sometimes stocks tukuwool. This is the tukuwool DK, which I would say is a relatively light DK, but it does block out really nicely. I don't remember the colour numbers, they'll be in the description, but this is a mid-grey, and then I also used a cream. I should say that this wool is woolly. It is much woollier than, for example, the Sandnes garn gynt. Like, this makes this feel very soft. If you're sensitive to wool, I don't think you'll like this. If you quite like woolly wool that feels like it came from a sheep, you might like this a lot. And personally, I really enjoy it. Sometimes I want to work with really soft cashmere, sometimes I want to work with quite woolly wool. I've been really enjoying this yarn, and it has worked, I think, quite well for this jumper. Try and show it. I'm currently, well, I think I need now to bind off the bottom of the jumper. I just haven't got round to it yet. So much of my hair on this, that's horrible. The thing about this shoulder construction is it never sits very well until you actually block it. So if I hold it up, you'll see it looks weird and wrinkly and it doesn't sit right. But I'm optimistic that once I've blocked it, it will look much better, because that's how it has been in the past. As you can see, it has this sort of contiguous shoulder shaping where you increase on either side of this panel of stitches that runs along the shoulder, and then you increase in between the markers that separate those stitches to get a sleeve. And then you finish off with raglan shaping at the bottom, and I think it gives a really nice round sleeve shape that suits itself quite well to slightly less oversized jumpers. I mean, this one is still fairly oversized, and I've tried it on and I'm really happy with the fit. It went quite smoothly. I don't know if anyone else relates to these things. I put the collar on. The collar is added on afterwards with this construction. And so I was thinking about what I wanted to do. And I know there are a lot of smart ways to do a nice folded collar, like doing a purl round, which naturally makes the folded collar crease nicely, or doing the 3 rounds of double knitting where you separate the knit and purl stitches and you do 1 extra round of knit stitches than purl stitches so that it forces the fabric to fold. I can show you that in an example on something I'm working on shortly, but right now for this collar I just fancied doing knit one purl one rib and folding it over and knitting it down and binding off. I think it looks really nice and I think it will block really prettily, and maybe that won't hold its shape quite as well as the double knitted alternative would, but I just think it looks pretty. I don't know, going back to basics I suppose. I don't know how much else I have to say about this. It's been on the needles for a while. I need to hurry up and put sleeves on. I don't like knitting sleeves that much, but I'm really excited to wear it, and I think I will certainly have more motivation to finish it as soon as it's cold enough that I can actually wear this to the office. I think it's going to be like a real winter staple, and as long as I'm happy enough with how it turns out, which currently I think I will be, I will put out a call for testers and get this test knitted for a winter release. So yes, that's my tombo sweater, which I've been making really good progress on. What next? I guess I'll go for this little guy. This is a new colour for me, right? Everybody says that red suits me. I wore a red dress in the last episode and all of the comments were like, oh, you should wear red more often, it looks really nice on you. And just generally people are very pro me knitting in red. I always feel like I do more beige and like pale blue, but as a one-off I thought it'd be fun to try the red. And so I treated myself to some very fancy red yarn. You know, if I'm going to knit something red, it's got to be a really, really nice red, which this is. This is not sponsored, I spent a lot of money on this. These ones here are for more bras, so I have 2 of the pink, 2 of the green, 2 of the red to knit more bras. And then these are part of a box of 10 balls that I bought to knit this cardigan. I don't think it will need all 10, so I can probably do some more accessories with the leftover. This is all Cardiff Cashmere Classic, and I'll see if I can check what colour this is, this red. I think it's called Gerbera. It's a very pretty red, like a very true red. I know the colour that's called Hermes is also very popular for red cashmere, but that one I think is more of like an orange red, which I don't think suits me, whereas this is a slightly cooler red, which I think does. I wanted to make something that's just a real classic wardrobe staple, and so I'm knitting a pattern that I've actually knitted twice before. This is the Ballerina wrap top by 2 of Wands. I first knitted it in some blue cashmere I got from Colour Mart quite a few years ago, and it was one of the first things I ever knitted, I think. And I still wear that cardigan, not all the time, but like from time to time. I think it was one of the first things I knitted that I actually did a good enough job with that I wear it frequently still. I then knitted it again in black to wear over evening dresses for formal events. I wear that cardigan approximately once a year because I don't really wear black, but it does its job. It comes out for me to put over an evening dress if I'm wearing like black or dark red or one of those colours. Then it goes back away again, and it's knitted in drops Flora and drops Kid Silk because I was on a student budget at the time. Now I'm not on a student budget and I'm making it in Cardiff Cashmere Classic, and it's going to be like a 100 and something pound cardigan probably, but it's going to be very beautiful. I am following the same modifications that I used for my last two. I added long sleeves, which are not in the original pattern. However, when I went back to check the pattern, I'm pretty sure 2 of Wands has now updated it to include a long sleeved option, which I don't think was there before. So if you do want to knit it with long sleeves, you can just follow the pattern. The pattern is free, but it's free on like a website with loads of ads. And so I just coughed up my like £5 or £6, whatever it costs, to buy the PDF, which includes all of this extra stuff. And I wish I did that 4 years ago or whenever I knitted this cardigan for the first time, but I was on a student budget and now I'm not, so I can treat myself like that. The other modification that I've made for the other 2 cardigans that I did, which I will also be making here, is I significantly adjusted the rate of increases. So I mean, I hope I've put a picture up of this cardigan so you understand somewhat what I'm talking about, but it's a wrap cardigan and you increase to cover yourself in the front. And the way it works in the original pattern is you start off increasing very infrequently and then you increase faster and faster, and I think at the bottom you end up like casting on several stitches each row so that the rate of increase is super fast and it gives like quite a rounded shape, and it means that the fabric on the front sort of smoothly travels into the I-cord that you then use to tie the cardigan. I don't mind that look, but it's just like not what I want. I want a cardigan that's quite neat and structured and just has like a triangle on one side and a triangle on the other side. And so basically what I do is I start increasing at the start and end of every right side row much earlier than the pattern tells you to do that, and then I ignore any further instructions to increase faster. So I just continue increasing at the start and end of every right side row. This is also super convenient because it means you don't have to like follow the pattern super closely. The pattern is it tells you what to do for each row, and so you have to really sit there with the pattern open in a row counter because it's not actually that repetitive. Even for the yoke, like you still have to be counting all of your rows the whole time. Other than that being kind of annoying, it's a pattern I totally recommend. It's very beginner friendly. You're going to make a lot of I-cord, so if you want to get good at making I-cord, this is a great pattern to try. But it looks really, really beautiful. I think it's one of the most flattering knitted pieces I've made. And yeah, the pattern is free and it's DK weight. It's super easy to find yarn that you can use for it. So this is a real strong recommendation for beginners. I knitted it when I was a beginner, so I can really encourage you to give it a go. Now the thing about this yarn is, as I mentioned when I was talking about the bralette, which as I said is knitted in a very similar yarn, this is DK weight, but it's a very light DK weight, and so I'm knitting it on 4mm needles. To be honest, I normally knit this yarn up on 3.5mm needles or 3mm needles for accessories and bras and stuff. It looks okay with 4mm needles, like it's not transparent or anything. I think it's fine, but the gauge is still quite a bit tighter than a proper DK would be. I don't know if tighter is the right word. There are more stitches per 10 centimeters. And so both of the previous times I knitted this cardigan, I made the smallest size. I think it was an extra small. I just sized up one to a small. I have done the maths to check that that will give me roughly the measurements that I want. I think knitting this in a small will work out and give me something that's kind of a similar size to the extra small knitted at the correct gauge. But we will see. I'm particularly worried about the sleeves. I'm worried they'll be too tight because my arms are not that small. But we will see how it goes. If I have to modify it a little bit, rip back, whatever, I'm sure I can figure it out. I think that this is going to be a really special piece. I'm really excited to have it this autumn. And yes, the pattern is lovely, the yarn is lovely. I've used both before on multiple occasions. I don't know what could go wrong. It's going to be great. Another huge thing that was not in the last episode. Am I showing anything that was in the last episode? Basically not. This is a test knit. So I will say, the yarn for this was sponsored. It was gifted to me by Knitting for Olive. This is a test knit for Garn Select. So the pattern was given to me by Garn Select for free, and I had a discount code that got me the yarn at the cost of shipping only. This is a test knit for Garn Select, as I said, who is a Norwegian designer, like a smaller Norwegian designer, who I have test knitted for on a number of occasions. I think that her patterns are extremely well written for like a newer, younger designer, and they're also just really beautifully designed. Like the styles are really, really good. My favourite camisole I think I've ever knitted was her first ever pattern release. So I strongly recommend you go look at her designs. She posted a picture of this thing that she was going to send off for testing soon. I'll put a picture here. Would you call it a shrug? She calls it the mist sleeves, which I think is a very cute name. I am not really like a shrug bolero kind of person. I don't feel like I'm cool enough for that. But this one really appeals to me because I was like, what if I knit a camisole to wear underneath in the same colour? Because it's knitted in the Knitting for Olive soft silk mohair, they do the same colours for their mohair as they do for their merino, which is my favourite summer top yarn, as I said. So I could knit myself a Knitting for Olive merino camisole in the same colour as the sleeves, and then I have a summer top, and then when autumn comes round, I can add sleeves to that summer top to make it into a jumper. I mean, I think that would be really, really cute. And I posted about it on my story. I was like, I'm so excited for this pattern to release. I would really like to knit it. And then Garn Slick asked me to test knit it, which was really cool. It's very hard to show what I have going on here because it's kind of in a weird place where it doesn't look like anything, and also there's just so much going on. It's knitted in 3 strands of soft silk mohair from Knitting for Olive. It's obviously a fairly pricey project, but I believe she's also recommended an alternative yarn that you can knit 1 strand of to get the same gauge. Oh dear, I really have made these into an incredibly tangled mess. So the sleeves are knitted from side to side. You cast on here, I think, and then you knit in this direction, and then you knit a sleeve. And the cast on is done with the Judy's Magic cast on. So after you've done one sleeve, you can pick up where you started and knit down the other sleeve. I have cast on here, knitted across to here. I need to knit a little bit more and then I'll start on the first sleeve. So you can see maybe I have a set of needles in each side, one here, because these ones will be picked up to add the sleeve. And that is the head hole. And then you can see there's this sort of twist, like one giant cable on the front and on the back. It's a super unique piece, and I think it's really, really beautiful and really delicate looking, but it's knitted on 7mm needles, so it's a very quick knit. So far the pattern has been written completely clearly and wonderfully, as is so often the case with Garn Slick's patterns, and I'm enjoying the yarn combination way more than I thought I would. I'm definitely not like a chunky knit person. I don't knit chunky things very often. I think I usually end up knitting DK weight stuff, but this just looks really beautiful, and I honestly think it might wear fairly well. Mohair tends to stand up to quite a lot of wear, and I'm hoping that this will work out well and last well, because I feel like a lot of bulky or chunky yarn isn't spun very tightly and pills a lot. Unless you're holding a lot of strands together, you don't get a super robust garment, but I think this might wear well after the initial shedding, which is going to be horrible. So I'm oddly tempted to knit a jumper in 3 strands of mohair on 7mm needles now. Maybe that's a really bad idea, but I just really like how this fabric is turning out. I think it's so pretty. I did feel a bit bad when a lot of people were like, what yarn have you used here? And I'm like, it's 3 strands of Knitting for Olive silk mohair. This is a really expensive project. I probably wouldn't be doing this if I wasn't being gifted the yarn for it. Anyway, I normally show all the yarn I bought at the end of the episode, but this is not sponsored. This is the merino I paid for myself. I bought 3 balls and it's in the same shade, ice blue, as the mohair that I'm using for the sleeves. And so I'm looking for the perfect camisole pattern to use for this. I want it to be quite plain because the sleeves are sort of the statement part of this 2-piece garment. And I wanted to have a lower neckline in the front so that you get to see some skin between the sleeves and the top of the camisole. So if you know a pattern like that, like a simple camisole with a lower neckline that you think is really good, do let me know, because I'm hunting for the perfect one. This yarn is really lovely. I wasn't sure about the colour. I have knitted a lot of stuff in soft blue from Knitting for Olive, which is probably the most similar colour that they have to this. It's a lot cooler, no, warmer. I never know about cool and warm with blues. It's a warmer blue. It's got more red in it, and it is much more muted, whereas this one feels a lot more green. It's much more like minty, and I'm never sure whether that suits me, but I think this will be quite pretty. I'll see if I can dig out some soft blue stuff, so in the next episode I can show you a comparison between the two colours. Just for anyone else who's like a knitting for olive pale blue yarn nerd like I am. Yes, I will do a side by side for you. Oh, I'll very briefly touch on this project that I was talking about in the last episode. I'm doing a cashmere scarf and hat that's also baby blue. The scarf is coming along slowly and steadily. The hat I finished, however, I think it needs more room at the top. This is something I really struggle with hats. I hate hats that are like really loose on the top of the head, but I think this is like slightly too tight. Like I think I would rather it sits like this, maybe. And so I need to add an extra 2 centimeters or something so I can bring it down almost to my eyebrows in the way that I like. I hate ripping things back, but this yarn is special enough that it's worth it. This is the Oslo hat by Petite Knit. I've knitted so many of these hats. I think I've done maybe 3 before, so you'd think by this point I would have figured out how to get them to fit properly. Apparently not. The yarn is another set of Cardiff Cashmere Classic in the shade Baby this time, which is pale blue. I recommend this hat pattern. It's a great one for giving as gifts. I love how clean it looks because it's all stockinette all over. I mean, if you're watching this video, I'm sure you've already heard of the Petite Knit Oslo hat. I feel like everybody makes them, but like everyone makes them for good reason. They're wonderful. So that brings me to the last work in progress, I think, that I'm going to show. And this one is another hat. This is a Petite Knit hat. This is the Weekend hat by Petite Knit. This is, I think, like the newest Petite Knit hat pattern. It came out probably a year or 2 ago. I knitted one of these before. I made my sister one last winter. Maybe it was for her birthday, I'm not sure. I made her a blue one in sandnes garn gynt with red stripes. And I had to do quite a lot of modification to the pattern to get that to work. The stripes meant that the pattern had a wrong side. And so I had to do some fancy short row turns and stuff to make it look right. But this time I'm doing it in a single colour, and so I'm just following the Weekend hat pattern exactly. The Weekend hat is just a ribbed beanie, so it's very easy. It does have, I was talking about it when I was talking about the collar of the tombo sweater that I'm working on. It has like the 3 rows of double knitting to encourage the ribbing to fold, and it does that twice. So you end up with a triple thickness section around your head and then rib all over. So I can actually show you what that 3 rows of double knitting looks like, because I have one right here. You see this? So basically, like instead of just working the knit stitches and purl stitches on the same round, you split for a few rounds so that you work the knit stitches that face one way, and then you knit the purl stitches that face the other way. And when you're doing that, you can do one extra row on one side, and that means that like right here you have 2 rows of knit stitches with 1 row of purl stitches behind, and that kind of encourages it to fold. I don't know if that makes any sense to you, but it's quite a clean finish, I think. And also because you're doing double knitted rounds and you're slipping stitches and stuff, I think it gives the edge slightly more structure and reduces its tendency to stretch out a little bit compared to if you didn't add this in at all. So the story behind this is I want to make hats for people for Christmas. Unfortunately, you think a hat is one of the easiest things you can knit, right? I find hats really hard to get right, just in terms of getting the fit right. I struggle to pick the right size that gives like exactly the right head circumference, and I also struggle to have just the right amount of rim on the top where it's not sticking up, because I don't personally like that look, but also it's not like sprayed onto your head, you know what I mean? And so I'm knitting myself a hat first to try and get it right, and then I'm going to move on to doing a couple of gift knit hats for people. When I'm gift knitting hats, this is basically always the yarn that I use. This is Double Sunday from Sandnes garn. I'll see if I can find the colour. Oh, I do have a full ball here, lovely. Here it is, Double Sunday by Sandnes garn. This colour is 3521. I believe it's called Ballet shoes, something like that. It's like a pale salmony pink, which I would not say is my colour, but I don't have a pink hat, and I actually think I might wear it. Maybe not while I have pink hair, but when I'm blonde, I think it would look quite nice. This is a non-superwash DK weight merino yarn, and I like using this to gift knit for people because it is, well, it's non-superwash, so I still enjoy the process of knitting with it and I like the finished result. I don't personally love the look of superwash merino knitted up. I find it's a little bit too shiny usually for my tastes. This is like the closest you get to the superwash feel without being superwash. This is just super non-scratchy. Obviously if somebody is specifically really sensitive to wool, maybe it won't be great for them, but for like the average person, this is a very non-irritating yarn choice. I knitted a lot of these for, well, I broke up with my boyfriend. That's the other thing that's happened in my life over the last few months. Like a few months ago I broke up with my boyfriend of several years. Before we broke up, I made him quite a few hats using this exact yarn, and he was quite sensitive to wool and always really liked the hats and wore them a lot. I don't think he was just doing it to make me happy. I think he actually liked the hats. So I'm going to keep on buying this yarn and using it to gift knit hats for people. It also just looks super even and good, and I think the petite knit hat patterns just are really simple and clean, and a lot of people like the design, and you can match it up with all of these different colours of double Sunday that are available. You can also use 2 strands of sandnes garn Sunday and substitute it for this, so that's even more colour options you could be using. And I just find it generally a joy to knit with. I grabbed another colour as well to do my first gift knit hat. I know you're looking at this and you're thinking, Florence, this is way more your colour than this. I love this colour, so whoever receives this is going to be very lucky. The colour is 6051. It's not the petite knit double Sunday, it's just the regular double Sunday without colours selected by petite knit, and it's like a really muted dark bluey grey green colour. It's really pretty. So yeah, I'm having a great time making this hat. I'm really hoping that it fits, and then I've been making really careful notes about like how many rows I did before the first double knitting fold line, and I'm making sure that I know what number of stitches I've cast on, and so I can make any modifications when I go to knit gifts for people, and hopefully they'll turn out really well. The Weekend Hat by Petite Knit. Oh, I don't know if I even need to say the pattern is well written. It's a petite knit hat pattern. I find all petite knit patterns are very well and clearly written. Like, she's a real professional. Her patterns are really good. Yeah, the hat patterns are great. I'm going to show a little bit of yarn that I bought, not masses. As I said, I've been on a bit of a gift knitting kick, and so I've just bought a lot of yarn to knit gift knits. I showed a couple already, like I got 3 balls of this dark coloured double Sunday I just showed to do a hat. Here's some fun colour for those of you who like fun colour. I purchased this at the Oxford yarn store, which I talk about all the time. It's a wonderful yarn shop in Oxford that sells a lot of like more luxury kind of yarn, like a lot of natural fibres, a lot of Scandinavian yarn brands, like you can get your Knitting for Olive, your Sandnes Garn, your Izia there. They also have a lot of hand dyed, which I don't usually buy, but this is a sock set from Bird Street Yarn. And I think this colour is an exclusive one that they dyed just for the Oxford yarn store, so that's pretty cool. Also, these are my mum's favourite colours. Like, she loves this sort of green and she loves this sort of hot pink. I taught her to knit a few years ago, and I think everything she's ever knitted has been either this green or this hot pink. And she asked me for socks for Christmas this year, and so I felt like this was the perfect yarn to pick up for that. Just her 2 favourite colours, and they also look great together. I don't know if you can see, like, this teal that's variegated has little bits of pink in it to tie it in with a pink mini that you can use for toes and heels. I think I'm just going to make vanilla socks with this perhaps, because this sort of variegated yarn will make vanilla socks beautiful, and a pattern might get a little bit lost. I don't know, maybe I'll do some slip stitches or something to make it slightly more interesting. But yes, this will definitely become a pair of socks by Christmas, because my mum specifically asked for them. And then I got a lot of yarn to make mittens, basically. I really wasn't sure what mitten pattern I'd follow, so I picked up yarn that I could use to make colourwork mittens at a few different gauges. So I got a fingering weight pair. These are Knitting for Olive no waste wool, which I have actually never used before. I really want to try it. I think it seems like a yarn that I would really enjoy. I think it knits up to the same gauge as the merino, so I'd say it's a light fingering weight. This colour is powder and this one is dark navy. I love blues and beiges together, like teal and beige together or dark navy and beige together. I think it looks really nice, and I think this will be a really pretty combination for a high contrast colourwork mitten. As I said, I do sometimes struggle with my hands being too big to knit fingering weight mittens at fingering weight, but maybe somebody with small hands will be receiving mittens this Christmas. We will see. And then I picked up a sport weight mitten knitting combination. Mitten knitting, it's a hard thing to say. This is Rosa Pomar Vovo. I've been using this for my Olympic jumper, so I've been knitting a lot with this yarn lately. It is a non-superwash Portuguese wool. It's sport weight. It says it can be knitted to 20 to 23 stitch gauge. For me, it'll probably be closer to a 23 stitch gauge, but yes, 100% wool, and it has this very cool packaging. It's got a cool grandma with tattoos knitting a scarf. Then this one has the cool grandma hugging a sheep. How cute is that? Again, I just went for something really basic. High contrast, a dark brown and a cream. And then I also got another gynt combination for mitten knitting. I really love this one. I'm doing a little bit more colour for this one, see? This is gynt from Sandnes Garn in the colour 4228, and this is the colour 2720, and I love these. This looks like a beige from a distance, right? But if you look at it close up, you'll see it has like red, yellow, blue and green tweed specks in it, which I wouldn't normally use for colour work, but I think it might be quite fun, particularly with the red flecks in here and the red other colour for the mittens. I think these will look really, really pretty. And since I'm so happy with how the gynt turned out for this pair of mittens, I'm particularly excited to use that combination to make more mittens. So yes, people will be receiving mittens for Christmas. I've been having a great time, but I only have one set of hands, so I will be making more for other people. My flatmate is away and I have to take a picture of these mittens to use for the thumbnail, and I want both my hands in the picture, but I don't have anybody to take a picture of me. It's a struggle. It is a struggle sometimes. I do want to show one other item. This was gifted to me. A lot of brands do ask if they can send me things. I usually say no. Definitely if it's not directly knitting related, I will say no, but even most knitting related stuff, like, I don't know, I don't use a lot of hand-dyed yarn, for example. But when I got a DM from this brand, I was like, actually, I really want that. And so I will say yes. I didn't agree to show it in the video. I'm just showing it because I think it's super cool. This is a bag from Redesigned, and it's a bag designed specifically for knitting. So I'll see if I can show you. I'm attached by a short microphone cord to my camera, which doesn't help. It looks like this. It's quite compact, and you can put a long strap on it. And then it opens out all the way like this to be huge. You can fit definitely a jumper and something else in it, no problem. And it has like a million pockets all designed for knitters. Like here you can put your knitting needles through these elastic loops, or like this little leather piece here. You probably can't see, but it has holes in it where you can store your needle for weaving in ends without losing it. I don't know, I'm just super happy with this thing, and I'm thinking about buying myself like a matching Notions case or something. The leather also feels pretty nice. Overall, I just think it's a really cool project bag. I don't own a lot of project bags, so I'm always excited to get a new one so that I can sort of sort my things out and store things separately with the yarn and the project all in one place. And so that has been a recent favourite of mine. I've also been carrying it to all of my knitting socials with all my stuff in, because then I know that if I need to weave ends or cut yarn or whatever, I have everything all in one place. It's a really lovely bag. Okay, this time I promise my next episode will not be more than a month away. I have now moved and I don't have that much going on in my life. Oh, I'm going on a trip to Stockholm for my birthday on my own, which I'm a little nervous about. I go to Stockholm sometimes for work trips, but I never get time to just like do tourist things or visit yarn shops, and so I thought it'd be nice to treat myself to a trip there without working at the end of the month. So if you have any recommendations for Stockholm, do let me know. I think it will be really fun. Thank you very much for watching. I will be back again soon with another episode. Goodbye.